Right, welcome to M-tel again. Today I'm working on a BMW. It's an 07 plate. It's a 335i twin turbo. This car belongs to a friend. Basically it come in like about a month ago, a couple of months ago. Problem with turbochargers, and basically it destroyed its catalytic converters. Reason being is the turbocharger wastegates had problems, lots of play on the flaps, quite a common issue with this car. So basically over the last couple of weeks we've been basically building a manifold and doing a single turbo conversion on this vehicle. Reason what I'm doing today is I'm blocking the off boost side of the engine breather system. On these engines there's a breather system that goes through the rocker cover and gets pulled in, the gases get pulled in directly into the intake ports on the engine via these small vanes which are on the side of the cylinder head. Now with these engines, the problem that you've got is when you go in a boost and you start running high boost, the pressure's pushed past the gasket on the rocker cover and basically blow all the oil through the turbocharger system, coking everything up, coats all the back of the valves up. Way to get rid of that, a lot of people do this thing called walnut blasting, which is to clean all the back of the valves off. But by doing this we will remove some of that, basically that dirty oil that's coming through the breather system, by basically blocking these holes to stop the backwards pressure bleeding back through the breather system. So that's what we're doing today. We're tapping out the holes on the side of the head and then fitting a couple of grub screws. There's 6 holes in total that run down into each port on the engine side. So we're tapping them out with an M5 tap, trying to stop the swirl from going into the engine, obviously, because that isn't good. And then we're going to basically plug the ports with some M5 grub screws with Loctite, and then we're going to clean all the ports out. And this is basically how to stop all that integration of basically the aluminium swirl when you cut the threads into the ports dropping down into your engine. So that's what I'm doing today basically. I'm going to make a video of it so you can see what I'm doing. It's quite, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's, most semi-skilled mechanics can do this. So as you can see already, I'll swing the camera around. Let's try getting it a little bit closer. So as you can see already, I've got the inlet manifold off, which is here, and the rocker cover's off, and then the ports basically are located, so you've got the screw holes that hold the rocker cover on, and right beside them there's a couple of ports. So there's one here, one next to each screw hole, and then as you get to the back of the head there's 2, one either side, because they're dropping down into the port in this direction, so they're not going straight into the head, they're coming down at a 45-degree angle into the port. So you've got one that all 5 of them drop down this way, and then the last one changes direction and goes that way into the far end port. So we're going to block these up. What we've done so far is we've stuffed the holes tight with tissue to prevent basically the integration. You've got to push it right down because that little hole exits into the actual throat of into the actual intake port, literally just before the centre bridge. So you've got to get it right down, otherwise all you're going to do is stuff the swarf over the top of the tissue, and then when you pull the tissue out it's going to fall down into all your valves and everything. So we push them right down, pack them in a nice tight balls and push them right down semi to the bridge. Now when you fish these out you're going to have to pull them out with a set of pliers like long nose. So we're going to do that all the way down, plug them up, and then you've got to stick tissue all the way down, because this thing here, this here is your camshaft bearing cage, or bearing ladder they call it. So rather than having the bearings in the head, they have this bearing ladder set up, so the camshaft runs in this. So say if you ever destroy this engine or you take the camshaft out, it's not the end of the world, because you can get basically a new bearing ladder. So you can unbolt the bearing ladder out of the engine, bolt a new one in, and Bob's your uncle, so you don't have to have all your head machined out. So it's a very good idea. Then this is all the variable cam system over the front of the engine. This is your timing chain, and these here, these plates, these are actually the pickups for the camshaft positioning sensors. So we're going to do that today. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm going to bring the camera around, I think, to try to position it a bit better into the engine bay so you can actually see what I'm doing. So yeah, right, let's get cracking, and hopefully you like the video, and we'll keep going from there. Right, I've basically got the camera in a reasonable position now so you can see what I'm doing. I've already rolled up a line of tissue basically and stuffed it all the way down the side of the bearing cam to try and block the holes basically. So try to stop that swoof, because if that falls underneath that bearing ladder, you're not gonna get it out. So we've done that first of all. Stuff that all in there nicely. Pack that all in there, like so. Right, next what we're doing is we're just going to plug all the holes in the intake ports. So tear it up, wrap it in a nice little ball as you can see, and then basically in the port, stick it down in the port and push it down over the head of the valve, basically so it's tight in there. And try to pack it out, so rather than having loads of fluffy bits, try to pack it out so it's flat and pushed right tight up against the sides. So you can see there when I've shine the light down, you can see basically what I'm getting at. They're all nice and packed up tight. That one's in nice and tight. When we take them out, what we're going to do is we're going to basically hoover them out of the barrels. I chop this bit of tissue, this bit of board up to try and help catch the dirt as it comes in. It didn't really work that well though. Let's try and do a bit of modification, see if we can make a better catch system. Right, yeah, that's not bad, and that's got a lot of grease on it and capture. Right, okay, right, we've done this hole here, so we're going to go for the second one along now. I've got a standard, what is it? I've got a standard M5 tap here. So as you can see, holding it in, standard M5 tap. In one of these, basically it's got like a chuck in there, basically vertical, and then I've got myself a little drill bit, or you can use an Allen key, whatever you want. It's a little drill bit to help me turn it basically as I cut it down into the head. Now we're going in for this one here, so this is the second one. When you do this, what you want to do is get a tiny, first of all put a tiny bit of oil down the hole, just a tiny bit, and that'll help the tap cut through the alley. And then what you want to do is you want to get a little bit of grease and smear it all the way around the top like that, and smear it over the bit of tissue. Now what that'll do is as you cut through, it'll capture the swoof and basically stop you from it, because that obviously, like where it's so light, it will go wherever it wants. Now as you start cutting this thing in, get your tap in, basically start feeding her in. Now pretty much it will start finding its own way as it pulls in, and now as it's basically going into the head, you'll start seeing it basically pull the thread, basically start cutting the thread in. Just keep pulling it, tighten it in. Occasionally you want to back it off when it feels a bit tight, and then keep turning it in. You want to go in by about, I would say, I'm pretty much trying to drop the whole of the hole's quite long, so the thread on the end of my tap is probably about 15 mil. So what I'm trying to do is sinking it to the end of the tap basically. Now I've got a good bit of thread into the head. Now when you actually bolt the grub screws in, they've got to be below the surface of the head. You can't have them sitting protruded. So you've got to make sure you drop that grub screw in tight enough, otherwise the gasket won't seat over the top properly and it won't be good. So basically, yeah, drop yourself in, but you don't want to tap all the way through into the port. So you literally like 10 mil, that's 10-15 mil, that's all you want to go in. As you do it, the swarf will cut out, and just keep turning her in nice and gentle. Screw her in every now and then, back it off. So I'm getting a little bit tight now, so I'm going to back it away like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tap out just to make sure, because basically what's going to happen is the swarf's going to come out and it's going to basically clog the cutter up. And then what will happen, because it's clogged the cutter up, it will make it harder for you to cut into the head. When you pull this thing out, obviously it's got grease on it, so it's going to be covered in swarf. So don't go shaking it all over the place and dropping all the swarf into the engine. You want to basically gently take it out, the swarf stuck to it, just basically take it out of the engine bay and basically get yourself like a little wire brush. Little wire brush, give it a little scrape off, little gentle brush off. Right, once you've done that, get yourself a bit of tissue and basically wipe the swarf away from the top of the head and try to capture it in the tissue. Don't let it go all over the place. Right, you've pushed some swarf down into the hole, but that won't matter. We'll deal with that when it comes to it. So now we've wiped that off, discard that bit of tissue straight into the bin. Another little dab in the finger of grease. Another little coat of grease again, just to help capture any swarf. Oil your tap this time. So just a bit of engine oil on it. Like that. Make sure she's all locked up tight. Bring it round, back into the hole. Now when you put it back in, you want to be able to screw it in gently with your fingers. And because you've already cut a bit of thread, it should just glide into the head like that. In she goes. The other thing is, don't rush the tap. Like if it feels like it's proper snagging up, because the last thing you want to do is snap a tap in this hole, because taps are made from some of the hardest materials, and if you think you're going to drill a tap out, you've got no chance. Right, I'm going to wipe this off now, like so. Right. Okay. There we go. Nice and clean. Right. Next, got a can of WD-40. Get the little straw and poke it through the hole, and as you do it you'll notice all the smeg will fall down into the barrel, and basically when you pull this out nice and gently, does it, there's your bit of turd. See, that's the bit of rubbish left in the hole. That's all swarf, bit of grease on there. Get rid of that, flip that off, I don't want that in there. Wipe it away, do it clean. Right, now we've done that, bit more grease on the card. So, right, put that back in the hole. Right, next, got a can of brake cleaner here. Make sure all the smeg's out of it. There we go. Get my torch, let's have a look down inside. There we go, minimal amount of dirt. Pull this out nice and gently, a couple little bit more bits of swarf. Anything that's left and got past has been caught by the tissue. I'm going to wipe this off again. So, what we're going to do, dry it off, because the brake cleaner will make it all go flopping, not very placid. I've got mine lipped up like a little flap like that, if you imagine, to help me catch the dirt. Now, keep grease on again, give it a little coat, help catch any dirt that falls on it, and into the next port. Got my little bag of my little grub screws. You can buy these grub screws off the internet, go to your local car retailer. I went to my local one in Herne Bay. Good old Rudolph's. Drop that on. Right. Okay, second one's going in. Finger on there. Put it on there. And she goes. So you got really kind of got to start screwing it on in before it's even in the hole. If you just try and go straight in, you're just going to cross thread it. So you got to kind of, where the thread kind of the hole's going out at a 45-degree angle to the actual surface of the head, you've got to kind of try and start screwing them in before you actually enter the hole. And then basically wind that one in like so. Get me my little 8mm spanner. Like so. And drop that down onto the block. As you can see, straight away, good reason why we left the tissue in, just in case you don't know whether you're going to drop one of these little grub screws or anything. If that plops into the port and falls through into the cylinder, you're going to really hate your life. Get another bit of tissue, dab that off. Try not to scrape across it, because there's threads cutting it, it will tear the tissue and snag it in the surface of the head. So then you'll be there trying to pick it out of a pair of tweezers. Right, another grub screw. What I will say to people as well, when you've done this, see, if you do get a bit of dirt into your engine, the aim of the game is to get nothing in there. But if you get a tiny bit of swarf in there, if you're worried about it, and then you've got a tiny bit of swarf that's gone in, a couple of little bits, the engine will wash it down into the sump, and then it will basically sit in the sump, or it will get picked up and then passed into the diesel filter, into the oil filter basically, which sits up here. If you are really worried and you're worried that a lot more's gone in there, you don't want it in here. You can have a tiny little bits of fleck maybe in there. It will just blast it through the engine, blow out the back. But we're talking tiny. The aim of the game is nothing. You don't want anything in there. You want to be proper going at it. Like when you look round, I can see there's a little bit of shine there. The good thing about it is it's sharp, so it will stick to your fingers, the oil on your hands, so you can just wipe it off like that and slowly pick away until you got it all. But yeah, you want it all away. You don't want to leave none on there. And basically, when you're doing these grub screws, basically, don't just like proper coat them, like get them really wet. So you've got kind of a drip hanging off the end, because basically, where you wind these into the head, the Loctite will slowly move up the head basically. And then by the time you get to the bottom, you'll have hardly any left to lock it in. So if you probably get a good little bit of Loctite on them. So there's like a little dribble on the bottom. As you pass that down, it'll slowly work down into the head and glue it right in. Don't drop it in the Loctite this time. And where it is, right, we're going for we've done 4, we're going for the 5th. It's just right back here in the darkness. you feel when it goes in that it feels like it's not going in straight and it feels like it's biting, you should literally be able to just twiddle these in with your fingers. If you feel like you're putting it in and straight away it's going tight, you've got it in wrong. So stop and basically take it back out and go again, and if it feels like it's doing it again, get your tap back again and run your tap through. Don't try and force it in, because if you force it in and it goes like doolally, you're going to really be stuck, because you'll never drill these things out. So you'll be in a real proper bad place. This one's got a bit of funny thing because the pulse is, so we're going to crank that one in. That's in. There we go. That one's in. Bit of tissue. Dab off the excess. There we go. There we go. Right, next. Obviously, we've still got the burrs in. Now what I've got here, I've got a little bit of 180. A little bit of 180, wet and dry. Like that. Let's get your little bit of 180 wet and dry. Fold it up into like a little bit like that. Over the hole, put your finger on it, and then just give it a little spin. Like that. And that'll take the burrs off. Right, so we've got all the tissue out now. Now we're going to suck the last remaining bits of dirt out. The old vacuum going. Right. Them all sucked out. Get the torch and have a look down. It all looks good. Right, so that's that. I've already done the manifold and put the gaskets in. So now we're going to lift the manifold back on. So, get this back up here. A load of wires coming up here that I need. Come up around there for the time being. Ooh. Right, there we go. Right, so that's back on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the manifold back and just make sure that the O-rings ain't falling out. Right, got there all in. Now we're going to go right on. Boom. Right, so that's down now. Right, nuts and bolts. Where are the nuts and bolts? 1, 2. Okay. That's it. Long extension. Long extension. Reduce. Last but not least. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Perfect. All done. Right, manifold's back on. All bolted up. Gaskets all in place. Rock covers on. All sealed and torqued up. Rock cover quite important. Try to get a torque wrench setting for it because of the gasket that's on it. When you do that, gas that rock cover up as well. Same again. Stagger the bolts all over the place and slowly work it down. When you put it on, obviously you've got to be proper careful that the gasket doesn't slip out basically and get bit between the surface of the head. So what I've done with mine is I put it on, put all the metal bits back into the rock cover, pushed the gasket in basically, worked it all out, and then what I did when I lowered it on, I gently put it on, and then when I sat it back down onto the head, I got a mirror out and I looked all the way around the engine with a mirror, around the sides, down inside, made sure that the gasket was all still in the right place before I bolted it down. You should know as well if it's not in. As you start bolting it down, it shouldn't, as you're bolting it down, you should get a nice even feel across the bolts as you put. If you start bolting down at the back and it feels like there's resistance very early and it's continuously squishing down and saying it's not and it's taking forever, I suggest that you stop, because you're probably crushing your gasket because it's probably falling out. You should pretty much be able to screw it down hand tight pretty much, and then literally like 1.5 turns and you should be like basing out. So 2 maximum. So that's a good little tip for you. Got to plug this sensor back in here, that one back in. Oh, right, so now we've done that, I'm going to get a little bit of tissue, going to clean off the fuel feed, just here, nice and clean. Going to get the fuel rail now, which is back here. Goes up like that, like that. That's the main fuel feed to the rail. And when you do this up, just give it a little tweak first of all. That pulls the rail over and pulls everything into place. Now, go back to the main bolts, lock them off. Because obviously if you just bolt the rail up and the rail sits slightly pissed, the fuel line won't match, it won't marry up to it properly. So nip it up first, just so it pulls itself in. And lock these off, same again, just a couple little tweaks. One, go to the back one, 2, 3. Same again, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's done up. Right, now they're done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go get the fuel lines. Now this engine here is a direct injection fuel engine. So it's a petrol engine with direct injection, which is a lot like a diesel to some degree, which is quite amazing. So the injector, by the looks of it, pass directly straight into the cylinder. It's kind of like a diesel injector does. See, so it gives the best fuel cleaning ability. Right, so fuel rail's now on, bolted up. I've got to nip the main feed pipe up. Now we're putting on each individual fuel line basically to all the fuel injectors. Now earlier on I made these like little hats, which I'm pulling off now, to cover up the intake of the injector. So I've got to pull these off. Come on. Pop. Double clean. Now the WD won't hurt it, because all the WD will do is basically it will just lubricate it, and then the fuel will just wash it away. Right, we've got all the fuel lines there, got 6 little fuel lines. All of these, I had these up on the bench, but we've got a bit of compressed there, got my airline running. Give them a little spray out, little blowout. Make sure there's nothing inside them. And then we're going to put fuel lines on. You put these fuel lines on, sit them on first, screw them up your fingers. And you tighten them up, so wind them down. As you do it, give them a little wiggle as you turn in the bolts. Helps it deck out nicely. A lot of companies say if you spoke to BMW, they would tell you that you have to replace these every time you take them off. I know Ford do with the diesels and stuff like that. If you've got loads and loads of money, it is best to replace them because of the fittings basically. They basically collapse as you bolt them down. Now, because they've got like a pressure fitting on one end. Now you can reuse them, like I've reused them loads of times. If you're a bit knowledgeable, obviously you'll notice if you've got a little bit of a fuel leak or anything, you know what I mean? So you'll notice if it's wet. So you'll be alright. So, but it's up to you really. It all depends out. If they've been off loads and loads of times before, you might want to think about it, but if not, I wouldn't really bother. I would just reuse them. They'll be fine. Wiggle, wiggle it, wiggle it. Good, 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 good. Right. They're all on. Right. What we're going to do first, we'll get 17mm and we're going to lock this front, the main feed off. So you don't have to do them like epically tight. You just have to give them a little 1, 2, 3, like that. So lock them off so they go tight, but obviously don't scream them to death. Right, next I reckon they're 14mm. The other ones. Let's have a look. Fix this. Span. So, when you're on the brow, yeah, it's 14. That's 14. Then you've got another one up here that you've got to tighten up. Now, when you do the row up, you can just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Oh, that one feels a bit yummy. That's it, that's decked out. What's that one? What's that one? Right. When you're doing injector side, you've got to get a nut, a spanner, on the base nut. If you don't, you could damage the injector. You do not want that. Put that one on there. That's that one locked off. Put that spanner on there. That. Last but not least, get that on there, like that. Get on that. So now the off boost side is now plugged, so you don't have to worry about that now. So the pressure can no longer blow past the gasket, and basically it separates that side from the engine basically. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy. Hope you enjoy the videos and the ones to come. Please share and get it about so people can see what we're doing. Thank you very much.